Next, we're going to talk about the respiratory system of the salmon. So my finger is in the throat. That's the pathway where the food moves from the mouth to the stomach. I wanted to show you where it is in relation to the salmon's respiratory system. Salmon have gills instead of lungs, and here are the gills. There's a gill on this side and on this side. My finger is coming through the salmon's throat. That's the passageway for the food to get from the mouth to the stomach. This black part right here is the salmon's tongue with a row of teeth here and here. The salmon's gill is arranged in layers. Here's one of those layers so you can take a look at it. When I hold it like this, it always reminds me of a feather. This part along the edge is very, very soft. This part is called the gill filament, and this is where respiration happens. Respiration is oxygen coming into the body and carbon dioxide going out. The skin on the gill filaments is super, super thin. The skin has to be super, super thin to allow oxygen in and carbon dioxide out. That's why the gill filaments are so soft. If I turn it around like this and open it up, see the white part that looks like a V? That white part that looks like a V is called the gill arch, and it's a hard bone. It's sort of the frame that the gill filament hangs from. Now if I turn it around this way, see these things that look like teeth? These things that look like teeth aren't really teeth. They're called Gill Rakers, and their job is to work like a fence to keep food away from the gill filaments so the gill filaments don't get cut or injured. The gills are arranged in layers and folds, and the gills are folded so many times so that we can have lots of edges. Respiration happens only on the edges of the gill filaments, but it happens on this edge, and the inside edge, and the outside edge, and the left edge, and the right edge. That's why there's so many edges folded close together so that they can all work together as a team to get enough oxygen in and carbon dioxide out. Students often ask, why can't fish breathe in air? Fish breathe oxygen and people breathe oxygen, so why can't fish breathe in air? Well, think about the way the gills are made. The gills are in these layers, and when the fish is underwater, its mouth is full of water, and water helps to float and separate all these different layers so they're all spread out, and all the edges of the gill filaments can be working together at the same time to get oxygen into the fish's body. If you take a fish out of water, what happens is the water runs out of their mouth, and the gill filaments are heavy, and they all sort of collapse and fold up like this. So a fish can survive for a few minutes outside of water because these edges of the gill filaments can still get oxygen from air, but all the other edges are squished together and can't get oxygen into the fish's body. Another reason why fish won't last breathing in air is because the water keeps the gill filaments soft. If you take a fish out of the water, these soft, wet gill filaments start to dry up and crust over, and when they dry, oxygen cannot get through the gill filaments and the fish suffocates. This is how a salmon takes a breath. Remember, salmon are underwater, so when they open their mouth, water runs into the mouth. They get a big mouthful of water, and then they use their tongue to push the water back to the back of their mouth, and they lift their gill cover at the same time. So by closing their mouth and lifting the gill cover, that forces water across their gills, and that's kind of how they exhale. So if you're watching salmon swimming, or in a salmon tank on your webcam, they open a mouth, that's kind of like inhaling. They close their mouth and lift their gill cover, that's like exhaling. Inhale, exhale.
I had no idea there are so many organs inside of the fish, but I have a big question.
Okay.
Do fish burp and fart?
Yes, they do, Callie. They have gas or air inside of their swim bladder, and it's important for a fish to be able to change the depth where they float And to change the depth where they float, they're going to change the amount of air inside the swim bladder. And one of the ways they can get rid of that air is to burp or fart.